The Animatrix is a collection of anime shorts based in the Matrix universe. It released a month after Matrix Reloaded and sought to expand the world of the Matrix. The Wachowskis got together with a load of professionals in the anime industry such as Peter Chung, Yoshiki Kawaji, and other respectable anime creators. The Animatrix is comprised of 9 shorts, but you can binge them all at once if you want to. So without any further ado, let's jump into it, bearing in mind that I will be covering each short individually. So the first short is named Final Flight of the Osiris and tells the story of how they obtain the scans at the beginning of The Matrix Reloaded.
These geotherms confirm the last transmission of the Osiris.
So the short starts off with this fight scene between these two characters blindfolded, which is cool and makes sense as this is probably a training program to train your hearing skills during battle. They do constantly cut each other's clothes off until they are semi-nude, which is pretty sexy, but it does kind of feel out of place in the Matrix universe. I don't know, it feels like the animators just got horny one day and just decided to do this. I will say though that the animation here reminds me of Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which isn't really good, but for 2003, these visuals are quite impressive. The choreography is quite impressive, and I like how the way both characters fight teaches you about their character. Thaddeus is the more defensive type and is constantly trying to be aware of where his enemy is coming, but Ju is the more offensive type where she goes straight for the kill. A nice bit of visual storytelling. Plus the soundtrack here is dope as fuck. Sentinels then come out of nowhere and they investigate to find 250,000 Sentinels above Zion. Some Sentinels notice them and they go after them. They know their death is inevitable and they need to get the scans to the other red pills, so Jude then jacks into the Matrix and delivers the scans to a post box for Ghost and Niobe to then pick up as seen in Enter the Matrix. The ship then gets blown up and everyone dies, but ultimately their deaths were not in vain as they have accomplished their mission. Overall, it's a pretty solid short. It has some cool action, some nice visuals, and works as some backstory to The Matrix Reloaded. Up next is The Second Renaissance, Parts 1 and 2. This is a 2-part short that explains how the war between man and machine started. Alright, to start off, I don't like the voiceover narration.
In the beginning, there was man, and for a time, it was good.
It's just kind of generic voiceover. In the beginning, there was blah blah and it was good. Most of the narration throughout these shorts are like this, and it's just boring stuff. Like, I get that narration is needed, but you don't gain anything from the narration that the visuals don't already tell you. Still, it's nice to see what this world was like before the war and how it functioned. So the short shows a machine named B166ER rise up against the machines and kill them in a very brutal way. Okay, it should probably be mentioned that the Animatrix is way more violent than the films and it contains much more gore than the films. Yeah. Humans then ordered B166ER to be destroyed along with the rest of his kind after this event. What I do like about the action sequences in both shorts is that the violence isn't glorified. It's sick and disturbing, and should make your skin crawl as you're forced to endure these events.
No, please! This'll teach them! Real!
And the scenes afterwards showing the piles of robots being dumped like trash really gives you the idea of how one event can change everything. The machines were then exiled from humanity to their own machine city, where they would be separated from humanity, which feels quite a bit like Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. Man and machine now no longer lived in unity. They now live in separate worlds. However, humanity would suffer from this as machines had been such a huge part of their society for a while that to have them gone left major gaps and major issues. The machines then tried to form a truce, but humanity rejected. What's interesting about this is this paints a completely different picture of the machines from the films. Originally, they were just big, bad, evil machines, but as this short shows, they were originally the ones trying to make the world a better place. Ultimately, both man and machine made mistakes, which led us to where we are now. Moving on to part 2, now the war begins. It's mostly a back and forth between man and machine. Man surrenders most of its territories to the machines, but they fight back with Darkstorm. As explained in the first Matrix, the machines ran on solar power, and thus humans scorched the sky to block out the sun. And here we actually get to see it happen. How fucking scary would it be to look up at the sun knowing that you'll never see it again? How scary would it be knowing that you've created an eternal nighttime now? That would be terrifying. We then get an action sequence showing the full-on man vs machine war with a kick-ass techno track. It's brutal, it's bloody, and it's terrifying. Eventually, humanity loses and they surrender their flesh to the machines. Ultimately, these two shorts are my favourite out of the bunch, and they really do give you some new perspectives to the entire saga, and can even make you view the story very differently. Unfortunately, the Animatrix does go downhill from here, as the rest of the shorts choose style over substance. Kid's story is 100% hand-drawn. Every frame of this short was drawn by hand, which is awesome for the first half, but when the action gets started, it just looks like shit. This story follows the kid from The Matrix Reloaded and explains his backstory. I've heard a lot of people say you need to watch this short to understand why he's in the movie, but you don't. First off, as explained earlier, the movie released a month before the Animatrix, so at the time of the movie's release, no one had seen the Animatrix, and also it's explained in the movie. Anyway, it just follows the kid throughout his average day, going to school, and arriving in class as his phone goes off.
They know you know. They're coming for you. Get out. Get out now.
Agents are coming after him because he knows about Neo, or some shit, so the rest of the short is pretty much just him trying to escape. And this is where the animation gets really bad. Like, Jesus Christ, just look at it. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but either way, it looks shit. Anyway, the kid then gets to the roof and jumps off in slow motion. We then get a funeral scene, but oh, it turns out he isn't dead, as he exits the Matrix, and Neo and Trinity are there to greet him.
It's okay. You're safe now.
I knew you'd save me.
I didn't save you, kid. You saved yourself.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves. Overall, this short is just kind of boring. It doesn't really expand the Matrix universe, and it develops a character nobody gives a shit about in the first place. Plus, the animation just looks awful, and overall, the short just isn't of high quality. Alright, so the next short is named Program. Program is just a girl fighting some samurai in like a temple or something. The animation is cool, and the fight is awesome, and I like how they imitate some cool shots from the movies, but there really isn't much to say about this one. It's fun, but it doesn't really have much substance. I mean, at the end it turns out it's just a training program and that she passed. I don't know, this short feels like it was just made to have a cool fight with swords. Which is okay, I guess. World Record is a weird one. It's about a man who runs so fast in the Matrix that he actually wakes up in real life. Dan Davis, a huge American athlete, wants to set a world record for a run while agents watch him. They're watching him because there are a few people who are able to become aware of the Matrix through unconventional means. Dan is one of those people. Although what's weird is that the agents here don't look like the actual agents from the films. They look like something out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It just feels inconsistent. The animation in this short is really good, and I love these heavy shadows, but there is this one section where Dan is talking to a friend of his, and it just looks funny.
This is no good, Dan! Your muscles are about to burst! Listen to me, there are 5,000 different reasons why you shouldn't—
I know, but I'm not withdrawing, Tom.
Oh, does the concept first in qualifying mean anything to you? That's enough already, you hear me? This is all we've worked for since the incident. Injure yourself now and it's over. You'll lose everything. Over! And you can kiss your career goodbye!
Like, the animation is just so spastic. Eventually, he starts running so fast his muscles burst. The agents then take over the other races and try to catch up with him, but it doesn't work, and he wakes up. does beat the world record, but he is now in a wheelchair, and he probably won't walk ever again. Overall, the idea of someone waking up from the Matrix by just sheer will is interesting, but they don't do anything interesting with that concept. He wakes up for like 30 seconds before being put back to sleep. Oh well, it's an okay short. Also the nurse here is kinda cute. I would fuck her. So the next short is named Beyond, and is a weird one. It follows the story of Yuko, looking for her cat Yuki. She looks for the cat and eventually ends up in a supposedly haunted house, and some kids follow her. They then find some weird stuff, such as floating cans, dogs being covered in darkness, and weird particles of rain coming through the roof even though it's not raining. It's a bit weird. It's shown multiple times throughout this short that this haunted house is actually a glitch in the Matrix, which I guess is supposed to be an explanation for haunted stuff in the real world. Anytime you think you see like a poltergeist move something, it turns out it's just a glitch in the Matrix. I guess that idea is kinda cool. Yuko does eventually find Yuki, but the kids from earlier start playing around, and so does Yuko. I mean, it's fun to see these guys mess around, and the soundtrack for this short is actually quite relaxing, but the issue I have with this is that it doesn't really expand the universe of the Matrix all that much. I mean, a lot of these ideas were explored in the Matrix Reloaded during the talk with the Oracle. It's fun to see what it's actually like, but it isn't really anything original. It doesn't last very long though, as a big red truck comes and they seal off the entire area. One part that does confuse me is this part where it shows the date of the Matrix being 2003. Alright, so at the start of the first Matrix movie, it shows that the Matrix itself takes place on the 19th of February 1998. And then at the end of the movie, it shows that the Matrix takes place on the 18th of September 1999, which means that the first movie takes place over the course of 19 months. Now, the Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions both take place around 6 months after the first movie, so the Matrix in those movies would take place around March 2000. But here, it says this short takes place on the 2nd of February 2003, so I guess this short takes place after the movies? That's kind of weird if it does. Anyway, the short ends with the kids outside trying to recreate the stuff they did, but it doesn't work, and Yuko leaves her blood there. It's an interesting short, but I wish they did a bit more of the idea. It could use a bit more development. Whew, now this one is going to be interesting, because as most of you know, I fucking love noir. I love noir novels, I love noir movies, and as you know, the Max Payne games are my favorite games ever. I fucking love noir. I love noir stories. And this is a noir detective story inside the Matrix? Whoa, that's about to get my dick fucking throbbing right now. So this short follows the story of Ash, a detective working a case about Trinity, and it starts off with some retrospective narration.
You know what I mean, Dinah? I used to think being a private detective was cool, like Sam Spade or Philip Marlowe, right? But there's nothing cool left to it. On top of that, both my fridge and my bank account are empty.
Damn, that's very noir. What I really do like about this short is that it has a very Art Deco 1930s visual style, but it also has stuff like computers to let us know that this is still kind of in the modern day, or at least in the modern day of the Matrix. The camera angles and the contrast of black and white really help give this short its own identity, and I like the film grain as well. Ash picks up a lead to a train and gets aboard and meets Trinity, who is dressing in her sexiest outfit in the whole saga. I'm being serious, this outfit is fucking sexy. She removes a bug from his eye that agents were using to track him, similar to Neo in the first Matrix. Agents then come after him as they try to escape, but Ash almost gets taken over by an agent, so Trinity has to leave him. Ultimately, this short goes nowhere. It doesn't expand the universe of the Matrix, and as a story itself, it has no progression. This is the short I was the most disappointed with, as I love noir, and I love the Matrix. Two things together? Should be awesome, right? Not quite. And now, the final short, Matriculated. I think that's how you pronounce it. So in this short, a group of people capture a Sentinel, or machine, whatever you want to call it, and try and reprogram it to form a bond with it. They can't force it to be on their side, it has to choose for itself. The visuals here though are really breathtaking. Some Sentinels attack, and then the new one fights back, but unfortunately everyone dies. The machine then looks off into the distance thinking... well, what is it thinking? Once again, cool idea, but not developed enough. Overall, the Animatrix is pretty hit and miss. There are some shorts that are fascinating and do provide some interesting insight into the world of the Matrix, but others are just sort of one-offs that either go nowhere or are poorly developed. Also, while the Animatrix isn't lacking philosophy like the Enter the Matrix is, it is certainly in a lesser amount than the films. Now, I'm not saying all of the shorts had to have philosophy, but it would have been nice to have ones that did explore a bit of the philosophy of the Matrix, similar to the films, maybe. I mean, since this is supposed to expand the universe of the Matrix, why not expand their philosophy as well? In fact, I think the only shorts in the Animatrix to have philosophy are the Second Renaissance Parts 1 and 2 and Matriculated. They explore themes and ideas of how humans abuse things they create, and the thinking of a robot. Does a robot have a choice, or is it just a machine programmed to do what it's told? I think more shorts with interesting philosophy would have been nice. The action is great for the most part, and is definitely the most brutal out of the Matrix Saga, and overall the soundtrack is pretty dope. So in the end, the Animatrix is just kinda meh, in my opinion. It has some interesting stuff, but ultimately it falls flat in execution. I've heard some people say that the Animatrix is the best part of the whole Matrix Saga, which I disagree with, because while it does have more interesting ideas than the films execute their ideas much better and with much more substance. But still, it's a nice entry in the series and is worth watching.